Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Are We There Yet from Crypto Sapiens. I'm Chris Eberle. Today, I'm joined by Alex Rawitz from Dimo. We're going to get into what Dimo is all about, what DePIN is, go through how decentralized tech is changing the way that people should be thinking about their cars and their data, and all kinds of ways to get connected and have more ownership over the really expensive assets that they own. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
We were pre-gaming a little bit before this, but just to repeat for folks, a lot of the folks that listen to Crypto Sapiens and to this podcast don't spend 24/7 working in Web3 in crypto and in this decentralized space like you and I do, which honestly is awesome, right? It's great that we have folks that are you're curious about emerging tech and in business and startups and all of these kinds of things joining in, but with that sort of audience in your mind, I want to go through first some background on you and then some background on what you're working on. But would love it if we could start just with your origin story. What got you working in this space, the crypto space, the decentralized tech space more broadly?
It's interesting. As I think about my origin story, I actually think that it connects to the persona that I think you're talking about. People who are interested in the frontier of tech. But for me, if you think about like the classic adoption curve, there's the like really, really, really early like tinkerers, like give me the product before it's unfinished and I'm happy to use it. And then there's the early adopters who are like, well, I kind of want something to be a cohesive experience, but I do want to be the first in line. And I can kind of vacillate between the two, maybe even more on the latter. I like to be an early adopter. I like shiny new things, but also if I'm going to have to struggle with it to make it work, I'll just wait for the next iteration. And that's kind of been the story of my career. I've always been drawn to technology. I worked in small businesses throughout college, but kind of knew I wanted to get into the tech space. I joined a startup accelerator early on. Over the course of time, I learned about crypto along the way and sort of kind of kept it at arm's length, but worked with tech companies, joined an IoT company in the early 2010s. I kind of cut my teeth selling hardware and software into the telecom world. And it was while I was there that I got the crypto bug, and I learned about Ethereum, read the Ethereum white paper, and started thinking about how machine-to-machine payments and really the IoT world as a whole could be transformed with something like Ethereum and smart contracts. And so fell down the crypto rabbit hole, spent a couple of years at Chainalysis working in the private sector. And then in 2021, actually really started focusing on Dimo. So my journey has always been about where are the cool shiny objects in tech? And then always thinking about how do we take something that has that potential and brings it to the world. And I think that's very much the state that we're in with crypto. It's very much the state we are in with Dimo, where the value, I think, has been proven out, but maybe the use cases and the actual ways that people use this tech need just that level of polish to get to the mainstream. And to me, that's kind of the most exciting time to be in an industry. How do you go and put those final tweaks, put that polish on the technology so that it becomes use? People stop talking about the tech and start talking about the value.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. And certainly can very much relate to that sort of that hunger for emerging tech and for just always, learning and doing the next things. And I've worked in sort of maybe different corners of the industry, but sort of similarly have gone through in my case, a Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3 journey. So awesome to, just awesome to see your journey and have you working in the space. Cool. So one of the things that I would love to do on the show is the Eli 5, the explain it like I'm 5. I think that, the space that you're working in, I do feel like it should be a lot more tangible for folks than some of the folks that I have that are coming on that are working on, things that are purely, on computers. So Dimo is digital infrastructure for moving objects. Can you break down a little bit of
Yeah.
what Dimo is, what DPIN is, and how folks who are learning about these things for the first time should think about them?
Let me start with Demo, and I will tell the background about Demo a little bit through the story of the auto industry. So about 7 or 8 years ago, and in some cases a little bit earlier than that, the auto industry started connecting their cars to the internet. And that means that when they built the car, they put a cellular modem in the car and they could send data from the car back to their servers. And so GM was one of the first to do this, and probably the most recognizable brand with OnStar. You could actually call for help and you could send some data back to GM. And it was really one of the first connected car applications that everyone knew. Pretty soon, every automaker had some connected car application. And today, if you buy a new car, 95% chance, especially if you're doing so in the US, you're going to get an app with that car, whether it's Toyota, a Tesla, a GM, whatever, they're going to give you that app. Pretty nice as a consumer. You can probably now lock and unlock your doors. Maybe you get a little bit of data about your car, maybe where it is. And those are all great additions. But there are some problems with the way that system has been built. A couple of weeks ago, GM was sued for sharing user data. Just this week, the New York Times article dropped, I think yesterday, maybe the day before. New York Times expose dropped about how car companies are collecting this data and scoring drivers. And the big problem, we believe, is not the fact that data is being used to try to create safer roads or better prices and services on insurance. The problem is that the users are being treated poorly and basically cut out of the loop of that process. Users don't have any control of their data. They don't have any transparency into how that data is being used. And it can be used against drivers in that way. So what we believe at Demo is that, one, users should have privacy by default. You should have access to your own data, but you should not have it shared with anyone, insurance company or OEM or otherwise, unless you say, I'm willing to share it with you. And two, we think that that data is most valuable when there's a robust economy built around it. So rather than having only one choice of who I can share my data with, let's say one insurance company, I should be able to share that same data with 10 insurance companies and see who's going to give me the best price and switch really easily. And that's the opposite of the way things are built today. Today, I don't know who has control of my vehicle data. And, in my case, I have a Toyota. They have a partnership with Progressive. Every couple of months, I get an email from Progressive that says, hey, you're a good driver. Do you want to come over and switch over to us? So they're obviously sharing my data with Progressive. We've built Demo where users, when they connect their car to Demo, they create their own secure enclave where they can store their data in an encrypted way. We've used the blockchain because we can create auditability. So every time I share my data, there's going to be a history of that on a blockchain, and I'll be able to see who I shared my data with. And three, we're building systems that are going to make opting in or removing data really explicit and really intuitive for users so that users can always be in control of their data and use it more fairly in the automotive ecosystem. And the last thing I'll say about background on Demo is, automotive data. People don't spend a lot of time thinking about that, but the trillion and trillion dollar auto industry does. And there's tens of thousands of companies, from manufacturers to dealerships to maintenance companies to financing companies, insurance companies, and on and on and on and on, that really, really value that data and are willing to pay you as a user to get their hands on it. So not only are we taking steps to create a better and more fair and transparent system for drivers, but also we want to create benefits for all those users and all those businesses where people can transact more easily and seamlessly, and basically just have a better digitally enabled automotive industry.
Very cool. Very cool. And to go a little bit deeper on that, and for folks who are processing this, I think it's important to share that, for the average consumer, the average car owner, the people who, like me, so I have a Tesla. I have the Tesla app on my phone. Yes, I happen to also have wallets and crypto expertise, but like to use Dimo, I just have to download your app, connect it once to my Tesla app, and I'm on my way, right?
And Tesla's a really interesting kind of company to talk about as an example. So first off, Chris, you're right. Yeah, you can download the Dimo app, get your Tesla connected in a couple minutes, and then you can use Dimo. And what Tesla has done is, and other automakers have done this too, but Tesla's built the most advanced version. Surprise, surprise. They've actually opened up some of their APIs in their developer platform. And there's 5 or 6 alternative apps to the Tesla app that you can download. And at first you might say, well, why would I want to do that? Like, the Tesla app's great. And it's sort of the mentality of like, well, you buy an iPhone, you don't just buy it for the apps the iPhone comes with. Just because it comes with a notepad doesn't mean you might not want to use Google Docs or Notion or Evernote or something else. Like, the whole magic of your phone is the app store and the choice that you get. So we think the same should apply to cars. And, obviously Tesla sees that world too, because they're encouraging the proliferation of these other apps, some that are more data focused, some that are more family focused. Like, you as a consumer are different than the other person with a Tesla. So you guys might want to get different things out of the app experience for your Tesla. We believe that that's the direction that the auto industry needs to go as a whole. And that is sort of the open approach that we're trying to create at Dimo. So not only after downloading Dimo would you be able to see some of the data about your Tesla, but we have this marketplace where maybe you would buy new tires for your Tesla, or you can book an install for a charger and buy your charger through our app. You could look at refinancing your Tesla. Like, we're bringing all of these other automotive services into our app, all built on the same permission architecture and all built around the Dimo rewards as well.
Really cool. Really cool. A side thought that came to mind as you're talking about that, because I love to hear that. And I think you and I would both be very much on the same side of the argument that open systems like these are amazing for innovation, amazing for users, all those things. I wish we could say these same kinds of things about Twitter after Elon bought it. There's a lot of innovation was kind of stifled there as API access was shut down or made it prohibitively expensive.
And there's some concern, I would say, amongst not just us, this is broadly the developer community around the Tesla API and other car maker APIs. Tesla made it free right now. They're going to start charging.
Sure.
It's too valuable of a service for them not to flip that switch at some point. All the other automakers are charging for their APIs. And the reality is, all these automakers 10 years ago, when at the advent of this like connected car world, told Wall Street basically, they said, we're going to build, same way we built $1 billion businesses around making cars, we're going to build $1 billion businesses around making software. And we're all going to become software companies. We're going to make these great apps. And they've all failed at that, creating the business side of it, at least. People aren't subscribing to their OEM apps. Mm-hmm. They're not, buying additional services through those apps. Usage is really low. So what we think they'll move to is really an infrastructure model where they'll say, look, we can provide the connectivity to the car, but we might as well have third-party developers build those cool apps. The third-party developer can build the maintenance app and build the car AI that tells you more informative things about your cars, or builds games and social clubs and all of these cool things that could exist on cars. Third-party developers should build those, and Dimo will be the data layer for that. And the reason that needs to exist is there's the largest automaker, Toyota, has 15% of the market. So there's a really long tail straight away of car makers. It's impossible for one developer to go and integrate Tesla and Toyota and BMW and on and on. You need to have a shared data layer. And that's where Dimo comes in.
Really cool. Really cool. And yeah, I mean, so much more powerful, I think, in every aspect, right? The marketplace model and beyond. Mm-hmm. Really cool. We'll go deeper into some of these sort of sub issues, and then after that we can sort of zoom out, if that's cool. But I want to talk a little bit about data privacy and protecting my data, owning my data, these kinds of things. I saw that New York Times article that you mentioned a couple days ago, and I guess maybe it should have occurred to me, but it had not, admittedly, that like Life 360, which I use with my kids,
Oh,
is
really?
yeah, is
I've looked at them. We've looked at them.
yeah,
Like it's an interesting company, and
yeah.
I think they have a lot of there's a lot of interesting ideas around what they've built that we look at in terms of the life cycle of owning the vehicle and ways to optimize that and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's interesting to be a user.
And I've certainly looked at it, and I know that my kids have, from the perspective of wow, this is incredibly detailed data, right? If you use all of their features, right, you can see, especially from a driving perspective, right, you can see the trip and the average speed and whatever, like if they stopped short and like all of this kind of stuff, which, if you look at it maybe just from a parent of a kid who's learning to drive perspective, could be super cool and helpful.
Yeah.
But a little, I don't know, freaky, for lack of a better word, when you think about it in the context of that data being, leveraged without my knowledge or express permission.
Yeah, it's funny because pretty much every parent goes there first when we talk about Dimo and talk about vehicle data. That's their first thought. It's like, oh, okay, I can see, where my kid's driving or how fast they're going, or you can get that from Life 360 uses just the data from the phone itself, basically GPS that the phone has. The way I look at it is like that's a contract between parent and children. Like it's not our right to like get in there and say what you can and can't do amongst your own family.
Yeah.
But I think the sentiment is in the right place, which is who else has access to that data? Especially if you think, okay, well, me as a parent, I want to be able to see where my kid is driving, but do you want insurance company or whatever other like next buyer is lined up to buy that data? And so that's kind of informed our approach from the very beginning is you as the account holder of Dimo should feel confident that your data is never leaving your secure enclave unless you're sharing it with somebody else. And I think that is, and it's the data privacy model is something that has gone, or the conversation, I should say, I think has gone in some interesting waves. There was, of course, like initial backlash once people realized how much of their data was online, and then there was sort of like just like an acceptance, like, oh, well, my data's out there. So, who am I? I'm not going to stop it. It's already out there. And then I think we've actually seen the pendulum swing back, which is like, well, if I'm just giving up, then that means I'm putting a lot more sensitive data out there, and what's out there is out there, but at least I can stop more from being out there. And I think that the fear side of it is good in the sense of like it's forcing us to correct, and like even from a regulatory perspective, there are strong tailwinds that are helping to enshrine more privacy for users. But I actually think that this conversation gets a lot more interesting to most people if you talk about what are the opportunities of owning your own data. And it's not mailbox money. Like when we started building Dimo, that was actually our initial assumption too. It was like we would get all these cars connected. We'd have this big aggregate data set. Everyone is anonymized and private within the data. So that's not a concern. But we could show up to an insurance company or a used car marketplace and say, we have this big data set. Do you want to buy it? And all of those potential customers said, yeah, it's kind of interesting. But what we really, really want is you, for example, Chris, when you go to sell your car, we want to get the data from your car. Because that's not a underwriting decision or model that we're tweaking. It's a very specific, discrete pricing decision that we can make based on your data. And for most people, that pricing actually helps. That data helps get you a better price because 9 out of 10 people are going to have a clean car and going to get a better price because you're de-risking it. So from our perspective, the data ownership conversation is all about opportunity. And another area where we see that being really valuable is on AI. Obviously, everyone is becoming familiar with AI tools and starting to experiment. And the hardest thing that people have realized is how do you give AI the context on who you are or what you want it to do. Oh, the AI can write you a blog post. Well, it's going to sound like an AI unless it can read your blog posts and write like you. Oh, that, you want to get AI advice on your relationship. Well, it doesn't know anything about your relationship. So maybe it's trained on thousands of others, but it doesn't know anything about your relationship. And so data ownership, when you start with the secure vault of some form that you have, whether it's on your car or relationship or family or whatever, you have that secure vault, and it's through that vault that you would give an AI context about who you are and actually use that AI model to the best of its ability. And so we're doing that with a company working on that right now, building a car AI. They can train it on all the service manuals in the world, but it wants to know what's going on inside your car if it's going to actually give you a good readout on what to do next. So data ownership is going to become a lot more interesting when it ties into the opportunities and new products that people can use versus just like stop the bad guy.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And the whole like opt-in and, portability aspect of it, right, I think is just core to where so much value is in the decentralized space. So very cool.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't let my 15-year-old drive the Tesla yet. And once my now 18-year-old, once she got her full license, we stopped doing any of the monitoring and all of that kind of stuff. But sort of similarly, right? It's
like fair rules.
They should have some level of sovereignty over their own data too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, sorry, enough about me. But really cool. Cool. So some of what you touched on there, I think sort of zoomed out for folks, which I think is really helpful. I wonder if you can give like for folks looking at the whole, like, I don't know, decentralized tech and IoT or DePIN more broadly, could you give folks an overview on like the whole space and sort of what that's about, and I think it's really part of that, like how decentralization can help folks like rethink some of these established industries.
Yeah, this is a great question. So decentralized infrastructure, physical infrastructure is a huge trending term right now and trending space. I typically define that it's the permissionless networking of hardware secured by cryptographic principles. So permissionless networking, meaning you or I or anyone else can go out there and connect a device, whether it's a new hardware device purpose-built for DePIN or something like your Tesla that exists today, and you can connect to Dimo. Deployment or networking of this infrastructure, meaning like we're tying it into a greater network. So you join the Dimo network, there's almost 100,000 cars that are connected. It runs on some infrastructure. And secured by cryptographic principles. So like we're actually we're having all the data that's put on Dimo is signed cryptographically so that we know it's coming from a verified source. There's no fake cars on Dimo. There's maybe some people who have added a suspicious, like set of cars. Like, are those all yours? Are you bringing in friends? Like, there's certainly some stuff that we're tracking, but like it's all about like all of the cars are real because they're being verified in a cryptographic way. And that's true across telecom, what Helium did. It's true across mapping, what companies are doing there, HiveMapper and Nadix. All of these companies are having users deploy some form of infrastructure and then trying to say, all right, how do we verify that the data they're sending us is real? I think that DePIN is really impactful for two reasons. One, infrastructure is typically extraordinarily cost prohibitive to build. So, telecom companies have had to spend billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars building out cell networks themselves in a centralized manner in order to provide coverage. Helium is pioneering a model to do that where, because you or I can put up a hotspot and provide coverage, we can all collectively build this carrier at a much cheaper cost. Google Maps has spent billions of dollars building their mapping products. And, there's a whole bunch of upstarts that are building mapping tools. In Dimo's case, these automakers are spending billions of dollars building their connected car platforms. And we're showing how users can help band together and build their own. So it helps to create a system that is more open and fair, gives users upside in the like build out of these systems. And it also makes it easier for users to actually create products that they want. So for example, users can deploy helium coverage in an area where a telco won't go, or a developer can build an app that an automaker won't build because, you know, they have access to this open infrastructure. That first piece, that sort of permissionless deployment, is, I think, really, really special because we can deploy infrastructure much cheaper. And if you are somebody who's in the crypto space, I think there's another reason to be really excited about all of this innovation, which is that the reason the real economy is valuable is because it is networked together. There's $1.5 trillion worth of car loans in the US. So if we want to see DeFi reach its potential, it has to be accessible to people that need loans on real world things, cars and houses and other assets that need to be backed by loans. So when we start to bring other industries, telecom and auto and other energy, when we start to bring these other industries into the crypto world by putting out decentralized products and cryptographic security, we can actually maximize, we grow the pie of what crypto can be, orders and orders of magnitude. And that to me is a really special thing that we're all accomplishing here, is expanding what crypto can be beyond just financial services.
Really cool. And the last piece makes me think about, the on-chain summer, stuff that has kicked off, right? And part of what I really like about the way that Base is championing on-chain summer, but there's two things about it that I think are really awesome. One is that it's not just people who are building on Base, on that specific L2. It's literally anything on chain. Yeah. So Polygon very much included, but like Solana or wherever else included too, because the point is getting as much opportunity, right? This is not a zero sum game. And I think inherent in what you're saying, it's about, getting in front of as many people as possible. And then the other part of what they're doing that I really like is that it's very focused on, I don't know, real people using real products and not like inside baseball crypto stuff, right? And so, case in point, right, being able to put an app on your phone and connect it to your car and gain value from that is something that, literally anybody with a connectable car can do, right? They don't have to be, an on-chain native to go do that. And yet they'll be doing things that are on-chain, and they can, activate a whole bunch more stuff, both within the app and then, to your point, like discovering other services that may or may not be on-chain, where in the future it all just sort of works underneath. But anyways, I just sort of, what you described sounded very on-chain summer aligned. So it's good to hear.
It's actually super interesting that you said that, because we spend a lot of time obviously talking with the Polygon team because we're built on Polygon, but we spend a lot of time talking with the Base team, and we're going to launch some cool stuff for on-chain summer on Base.
Nice.
We spend time talking with the Polygon team and the Solana team, talking with projects in the Solana ecosystem. Helium in particular, they've always been very supportive of what we're doing. I've been pleasantly surprised by just like the collective enthusiasm for like, hey, like, oh, you're in Polygon's world, we won't talk to you. It's like, no. Like, we're all here to build better experiences and better infrastructure for consumers and businesses. And if you can win over there, like, it's actually a win for us too.
Awesome. Yeah. This is the way, right? Not being maxis to whatever one, corner or tribe or what have you, and all of that. Yeah. Actually, as you mentioned that, I feel like I saw you on a Solana, podcast, right? That's great. Like, as it should be. Really cool.
Yeah, validated with Austin. Yeah, and, it's all a very supportive like co-ecosystem. I think the loudest people who are like, this is better than that, are like, honestly, like, I don't know, they seem to have drifted furthest from the ethos of like, well, like, let's just build better stuff together, and with that we create a better world.
That's it, right? And at some point, folks within our industry, some of the folks maybe that are further over to that side will realize that in the end, yeah, people just want to use awesome products. They just want to, gain value, do cool things, what have you. They're like, it will all be best served if they don't even have to think about what chain or chains it's on. It just kind of works, right? Well, cool. Well, along those lines, I'd love to get into a little bit of where you see this all going. So the idea of this "Are We There Yet?" show is, looking at where we are in this journey, right? Is where are we in bringing things on chain and in this this journey towards decentralized tech, and one, it's fun, and there's probably a dad joke that I can't quite pull, but about are we there yet in the context of car related tech? But I just can't get there.
I was thinking the same thing.
Right? There's got to be something there. But I would love to get. I mean, obviously, we're not there yet, right? We're early in this in this journey, and there's a lot of amazing things that are here, and there's a lot of amazing things to come. I'd love to get some of your predictions on where this is all headed. Like, what does this look like in a year, in 5 years, whatever you think is sort of meatiest to answer.
I think that the biggest reason that we haven't gotten there yet, and this is not controversial, it's just been the wallet experience. It is not a friendly experience to most users. And I was at a happy hour here in New York, crypto and tech happy hour yesterday, and I met somebody from the payments world. And in the Web 2 payments world, they've been driving at one click, like payment sent. There's like, you talk to anyone, they're like, oh, well, our app is at 3 clicks, and like, we're driving to get it down to 1. And in the crypto world, like, that's unheard of. Like, there's literally nothing you can do in crypto with 1 click.
Yeah.
And, like, we sort of just like have forgotten those principles, user experience principles from the rest of the Web 2 world. And yeah, it shouldn't surprise us at all that when you put an app in there where it's like, okay, well, connect your wallet and, create a transaction or sign the transaction, pending transaction, like all of these steps, users are turned off. And so this is more trouble than it's worth. And I think that we are actually finally at the inflection point with wallet infrastructure where that is going to change. And account abstraction, is going to allow a huge jump forward. It's not perfect yet. We're in the process right now of building what we call a wallet as a service, and we're actually borrowing from some other like wallet as a service infrastructure. We're working with a couple of the major providers that are out there, and that's going to allow us to build into the Dimo mobile app and make available to other apps building on Dimo a seamless wallet experience that users can click a connect with your email button, have a wallet in the background. They can still claim their private keys if they want to. And that's an experience that we think is going to finally unlock, because at the end of the day, users don't care what the underlying technology is. They care about the benefit they get in their life. And the vast majority of people want a great product experience, and we haven't really been able to deliver that. So I think that we're going to get over the next 5 years an onslaught of applications that have been able to hide the wires in crypto, but still provide those critical crypto benefits. In our case, transparency. Who are you sharing your data with? Openness, more developers building more apps for your car, and a reward system that is actually completely open and other companies can plug into. So I think that we're at that critical inflection point, and in 5 years' time, a user is probably going to have, if you were to just open an average person's phone, they would probably have 1 or 2 crypto apps on there that they don't even know are crypto. And that's going to be like, have we won? Yes, we have. Obviously, there's some danger, or there's all the principles of decentralization. Do all those still exist? But like, getting these apps baked into a user's daily life is going to be the biggest sign of victory.
Totally agree. And yeah, and you can see it, right? You can see the improvements that have come in the wallet space, in things like bridging, right? Like that, in the people who have been in the industry are used to putting up with the friction of getting tokens from one chain to another, and it's gotten exponentially easier and cheaper. And still, like, we won't have one until the average user can use things and not even have to know what that means, right? There's it's like you said, it's so many clicks and things involved that you're just going to lose, understandably, you're going to lose people. But yeah, I think that's on point. I wanted to ask you, I saw that you are hiring for, I believe the title is car hacker.
Yeah.
One of the cooler job descriptions that I've come across. Can you talk a little bit about what that is? What would the ideal candidate look like?
Yeah. So interestingly, automakers have kind of had their hand forced to have cars be open. Meaning, so all cars have a computer network built into them, and that computer network controls all of it's not just the infotainment system. A lot of people think that's the computer because it has a screen, but there's computers built throughout your entire car, managing sensors in the engine, sensors in your tires. There's actually a number of different computers. They're called ECUs. And these computers all communicate through a network called the CAN bus. The CAN bus is the network that we need hackers for. And every automaker and pretty much every car has its own proprietary, and there's some that are standard, but most cars have a bunch of proprietary codes on the CAN bus. If you want to get the maximum amount of data from a car and thus provide the maximum benefit to users and the maximum benefit to developers, you need people who can decode those CAN bus signals. Good news is tons of people have already been hacking on their CAN bus, hacking their cars in their garages for the better part of the last decade. And some of those codes are in open source repositories online already. And we already have community members who are actually handing us CAN bus codes and saying, hey, I've decoded my VW. Here you go. Here's the codes. And we take those codes, we apply it to Dimo and to the infrastructure we have. And then anyone else with the same car sees more data. So this car hacker is somebody with the expertise of how to hack the CAN bus, basically how to decode a car, but also with the capabilities to coordinate a community-wide open source effort in gathering additional codes and basically bringing an open source repository for CAN bus data to the Dimo network. And more data means more possibilities.
Very cool. And as you describe it, it sounds a lot more like a way to activate people who are into cars and working on cars.
Oh yeah.
Than it is like a crypto thing. Nothing wrong, obviously, with crypto things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we're still mostly in the crypto days of our audience, but we're starting to get a trickle of more and more like really interested car people. And that's pretty exciting to us because that's kind of a sign that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, as you were describing that, I have a buddy who I'm sure he's crypto aware, but he certainly doesn't work in the space. But every time we hang out, he talks about his old, what's it called, a Vanagon that he works on, and then his BMW 335. So very different ends of the spectrum, but in both cases, he's gotten in and learned how it works and learns the systems and customized, and especially in the BMW with the computer and does all that stuff. But it's like, activating people like that to help, bring these things to a whole lot more people that care about cars and probably have other
people love
things.
Their cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most of us know like one or two car, just like absolute, gearheads. And that is, a lot of crypto people, when we explain what they're doing, they're like, what? Like cars? Like, what? Like, they're just like think that the whole world is crypto. And then you sort of prod them on that and you're like, oh, well, you must know, you probably know one person. Like think of the person who's most obsessed with cars. And they think for a second, like, oh yeah, that's true. Like there are a lot of those people. And you start to realize like, okay, if I can go that deep on cars, then, there is an amount of data that I actually might find interesting and would pique my curiosity. And that's been a way in with crypto people and car people kind of across the board.
Very cool. And I mean, yeah, let's be real, right? Like you said, the total addressable market here in terms of dollars, in terms of, number of cars on the road and people who drive them is massive. So
It's funny, people don't, like the crypto space, I think has in its obsession with like the numbers on the screen has forgotten the value of the real world.
yes.
And we have close to 100,000 cars connected, and that's like well over $1 billion worth of cars. And automakers spend billions on one new factory. And you'll see like a crypto protocol like, we just reached 100 in TVL, and it's like, okay, that's very impressive. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm impressed when I see those things, but like a car company is like, 100 in TVL, cool. Well, we're building two $6 billion plants. Like, the numbers and the scale of what happens in the auto industry are truly, just mind-boggling, especially coming from crypto, where we're still in such early innings.
Yeah. No, it's super tangible. So I guess speaking of making it tangible, what are the best ways for folks to learn more about Dimo, to get involved? Yeah. Everybody from in industry folks to to people with cars.
Yep. So if you're thinking about connecting your car, and I always tell people, go down that rabbit hole first. Like, come join us. DriveDimo.com is the place to start. You can go to the website, check it out. We also have Dimo.zone, which is if you're a developer and you're kind of more of like, hey, I want to understand tokenomics, I want to understand this infrastructure. Dimo.zone is the website for the Dimo Foundation. You should go and read up there and check out our docs. And the last thing I always encourage people to do is follow Dimo_network on Twitter. It's going to be the account with the most followers that we have, and we like to post news and updates, and of course that's going to be the hub for keeping tabs on the project. So drivedemo.com, Dimo.zone, and Dimo_network on X.
All right, fantastic. And we'll include links to all of these in the show notes when this goes up, in all the places. All right. Well, Alex, it has been a pleasure. I'm sincerely stoked to learn more about what you're building, and just kind of my brain has been expanded a bit, and just thinking about how how like real and tangible this is, and it's great to chat with you today. Thank you for coming on. Any parting words? Any final thoughts?
As I said at the beginning, thanks for having me on, Chris. And go check out Dimo. And if you're not already checking out the DePIN space, come join us on the weird part of Twitter, of crypto Twitter.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Alex, and go Dimo.